Welcome to the news at Trash Panda Revelry. Here's some of the news this week. MyPillow founder, staunch Trump supporter, and prominent election denier Mike Lindell is running for governor in Minnesota. At his kickoff event in Trump-like style, his campaign announced his plan to contest the integrity of the voting process in every single district come the election on November 3rd, unless of course he wins. The New York Times has reported that rapper Boozy Badass is seeking a refund from a MAGA-connected lobbying firm for failing to secure him a pardon for a past weapons conviction in exchange for the $600,000 he paid for them to do so. Unfortunately, Boozy, you failed to meet the qualifications for a Trump pardon. You either need to be a January 6th insurrectionist, or you need to be very rich and preferably white. You scored pretty well on the rich part, but according to a report produced by Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, in 2025, 85% of Trump's pardons and clemencies were issued to white people. Because yeah, it's definitely the white folks that have most gotten screwed over by the justice system in the past 50 years. The New York Times has reported that internal memos told federal agents that ICE immigrant encounters would no longer be investigated by the FBI. The FBI having historically been more likely to find ICE agent misconduct, and instead would only be investigated by Trump's DHS. The DHS and FBI have denied this, saying there has been no policy change, with the DHS going so far as to say there's a special ICE agent misconduct task force that processes all investigations into one place. The Tate brothers were arrested again, this time in Florida, and there are no signs so far that the Trump administration will fight their extradition, as Britain is seeking the brothers on 59 counts of sex crime-related charges, including rape and sex trafficking. After visiting with some congressmen last week, the brothers were most noticeably last seen partying and taking pictures at a lavish DC party with various DC insiders, to include Justice, State, and Treasury, as well as a prominent Trump advisor. So clearly your typical Trump-style drain the swamp party. The Tate brothers rose to most of their prominence as a result of a backlash against the Me Too movement, and the Tates tried to capitalize by representing an image of hyper-toxic masculinity with their online courses, designed to teach men essentially how to be pimps and make women into sex slaves for profit. Unfortunately, and somewhat ironically, it's reported that several Manchester prison inmates are looking forward to possibly testing out those same Tate brothers online course methods on them once they're incarcerated. In other news, after leaked reports of security deficiencies, President Trump says that the Qatar-gifted Air Force One is to be taken out of service for a month to be maxed out. So in goes air missile defense countermeasures, and out goes that clap-on, clap-off office disco ball playing YMCA. Aw, frowny face. But on the bright side, reports say that the Qatar-gifted Air Force One had already been scent-maxed to match the smell of palmed money. The Ebola virus outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo has now killed over 1,000 people with no signs of slowing down. Many blame the lack of containment of this virus outbreak on recent cuts to U.S. aid made by the Trump administration, which has hampered medical infrastructure and limited WHO coordination. The outbreak is still getting very little attention from Republicans in control of Congress, though. When asked about preventing the human deaths, Republican Party representatives said, "Look, we've been very clear, we're pro-life, but really only in one form. So call us when an embryo gets Ebola, and then maybe we'll talk." In other news, in a race to defeat Republican Susan Collins, who was always a swing vote that Democrats often tried to persuade, but who frequently voted with Republicans anyway in submarine Democratic efforts, similar to John Fetterman, to include past votes on the Supreme Court nominees who later overturned Roe v. Wade, Democrats have instead now put forth Troy Jackson to replace Graham Plattner, who withdrew from the nomination due to rape allegations. And Jackson, who used to have some very conservative views, has lately been accused by some of having temper issues. But short of another scandal before the July 27th nomination deadline, Jackson appears to be locked in as the Democratic nominee to take on Collins. which is good because Democrats had already decided that if this nominee didn't work out either, their last choice was just going to be this guy. Aw, I like him, and he seems woodsy, like he would understand the rural voter. And in even weirder news, a man in Idaho recaptured the Guinness World Record for balancing 195 rolls of toilet paper on his head. Afterwards, his wife and neighbors agreed, yeah, David may have just a little too much time on his hands. And finally, a South Korean restaurant owner is facing fines and possible jail time for serving dried ants on his restaurant dishes without a permit that were also the wrong type of ant and contained higher levels of metal than what is typically allowed by South Korean food laws. With fears of a restaurant shutdown looming, the owner was overheard saying, "What? Isn't this a restaurant for ants? How are people supposed to enjoy their ants if they can't even get in the building?" Shout out to Ben Stiller. And that's all the news for the week. See you next time.